Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. And so today, we're going to be, doing the typical kind of boring jazz. But the main topic of this video is one of kind of importance because it's going to be about the North Carolina 4th Congressional District Congressional Race. Which is interesting for me because I live in the North Carolina 4th Congressional District. Don't dox me. And I'm going to be a first-time voter in this race. But I'm not that happy with my choices, and I'll explain why after we go over the news and the political party of the day. So, the first story we're kind of going to go into is a big one, relatively speaking, but not technically the most important one. Facebook, Apple, YouTube, and Spotify ban InfoWars' Alex Jones. A crackdown on U.S. conspiracy theories for promoting violence and hate speech. All but one of the major content platforms have banned Alex Jones. The company is raced to act in the wake of Apple's decision to remove 5 podcasts by Jones and his InfoWars website. Now, technically, this is both a good and bad thing. Good in the sense of, these people are trying to crack down on the whole fake news outrage and, trying to actually make sure people are more informed and not lied to. But kind of, iffy on the whole, hey, isn't this kind of ripping on Alex Jones's free speech? But this has kind of been discussed about a lot more on a lot of other platforms. All I really gotta say is, stinks for Alex Jones. But hey, at least it's not me, am I right? And then a week from now, YouTube's gonna start cracking down on all this kind of content, and my channel's gonna be the first to go. So anyways, the next story, Obama to receive RFK Human Rights Award. Former President Obama has been named the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Ripple of Hope Laureate. The award honors global leaders for their exceptional work toward a more and just peaceful world. Along with Obama, the Discovery President and CEO David Zaslav, Humana CEO Bruce Broussard, and New York Jersey Governor Phil Murphy will also be attending the receive the Ripple of Hope. Now, many people have both praised and criticized this decision. Even just so recently, we've had an Obama Day. And my criticism for Obama Day can also be related to this one. Obama received Human Rights Award. Human rights for who? Because I can give you a list of human rights things that he wasn't in favor of. The Afghanistan war, we're still there. He sent more troops there, in fact. He pulled out of Iraq on George Bush's terms. That's not exactly human rights worthy. He conducted extreme drone warfare. He cracked down on a lot of whistleblowers. Edward Snowden can't go home now. Chelsea Manning is now suicidal due to possible torture against her. Obama, people give shit for Trump for deporting a lot of people, but Obama did a lot of that too. Obama spies on everything we do. Well, not anymore, but he did. My camera on my laptop is taped so that nobody can see me. Of course, it doesn't work for the microphone because who cares about that? I mean, and you see this is why when YouTube's gonna start coming for me, because they're gonna be like, "Oh, you're a little bit crazy, don't you think?" But personally, I don't really think that Obama deserves an RFK Human Rights Award. But again, just like Chomsky stated, pretty much no post-World War II president deserves one. You know, all of them have their human rights unworthiness. I'll even admit, a lot of the ones I like. Yes, I like JFK a bit. Like FDR and LBJ, they don't really deserve human rights awards either. And, well, that's pretty much all I gotta say about that. People always talk about how they're like, remember when Barack Obama was like the good president and Trump is the evil, nasty, stupid president? This is coming from a person who was like, when I was 8 and 12, I was fully on board with the Obama campaign. Like, I like the first black man to be president. Isn't it cool? They used to be slaves, and now thanks to Lincoln and JFK, one can become president. And hopefully, and I'm pretty sure at one point this might get spread by a lot of Obama supporters, and I might get a bunch of shit in the comments. But I mean, I'll give him credit where credit is due. The Affordable Care Act did some good. Yeah, I think that's it, actually. And even then, the Affordable Care Act was just a band-aid on a bullet hole. I mean, even a lot of the things that he also kind of stood for, like, you know, gay rights and gun legislation, he didn't really do much in those regards. And again, many people could also argue, like, oh, it's because the Congress didn't have the power since they were mostly Republican. And that could be a fair point. But then why didn't Obama just do a lot of this legislation in the early days of his presidency? Because he had, like, a major Republican control at that point. I mean, if I were president and I had a fully, like, let's say I was president and I had a fully Green Party, you know, Congress, or there were more Green Party members and Libertarians than either of the two major parties, I'd be passing so much legislation to them. I mean, granted, this isn't like a power of the presidency, but come on. Everybody who wants to be president has the idea of doing some executive orders. Nobody doesn't have that. But anyways, I mentioned Chomsky earlier, and here's a news article from thejewishpress.com. Chomsky calls for Russian interference a joke, blames guess who, by Alan M. Dershowitz. Not criticizing Alan M. Dershowitz or Jewish people. This is all just, you know, me analyzing an article and talking about a lot of things. I can expect a lot of comments probably in the comment section, much like Jeremy Corbyn, especially considering I support Jeremy Corbyn. They might call me a fucking anti-Semite. But I mean, I'm not an anti-Semite. I know I'm not. I like Jewish people. The Holocaust was terrible. If I saw Hitler in the streets, I'd kick him in the nuts and say, "This is for Israel." But by the way, I'm also on the side of a free Palestine. But that's beside the point. Chomsky and Jewish press. Noam Chomsky has gone off the deep end once again. This time he claims that most of the world, the issue of Russian interference in elections is almost a joke. The real villain, according to him, is of course Israel, as it almost always is with Chomsky. According to the world's top public intellectual, they put it in air quotes because, you know, Noam Chomsky's a fucking moron, am I right? Israeli intervention in U.S. elections vastly overwhelms anything the Russians may have done. His proof of this absurd and false charge is that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a speech in front of Congress with overwhelming applause. Only on planet Chomsky would it be worse for the Prime Minister of an American ally openly to accept an invitation from the Speaker of the House to address Congress about an issue that is mutual concern. that for Russian agents surreptitiously trying to manipulate voters by false social media campaigns, hacking emails, and other illegal actions. Okay. Now, again, that's where the article ends for me, and this is where I get my opinion out. But this is my biggest problem with a lot of the Israel kind of stuff. Whenever Israel, it's as a country, like, obviously not gonna crap on Jews or Jewish people. My favorite politician is Jewish. Some of my favorite politicians are Jewish. Bernie Sanders, Alan Grayson. Larry King's kind of cool. He's not a politician, but, you know. But, like, whenever there's something that Israel itself, as a country, does wrong, nobody seems to want to blame them. Why not? It'd be great if we had a Jewish individual, like, openly criticize Israel. The government of Israel is, to be perfectly honest, terrible. Benjamin Netanyahu is a bad prime minister. It's just truth. It's just the truth. It's something people can't. It's like not an actual thing you can deny. Israel freaking murders a lot of innocent Palestinians. And then when people are like, oh, it was Hamas's fault, it was a trap set by Hamas, then why are you falling for it? If you know it's a trap, don't... Look, tell me the honest truth in the comments. Someone is going to have you kill a child. And you're like... and it's like... You know it's a trap and you're going to be forced to kill the child. But you do it anyways. Does that make you a murderer? Benjamin... Like there are a lot of... Like, there's an Israeli political party that I like. It's like a social democratic two-state solution supporting secular party. I know many people might be like, oh, you like the Israeli party that's not Jewish. It's like, but, you know, it's... And it's not even just Israel. Saudi Arabia also does some pretty crappy stuff. It's not exclusively Israel. But think about it. You can't deny that Israel is kind of has some crappy things to do with them. Okay, next story, and then we're going to go into some of the August 7th and August 2nd primaries. Some of the latest primaries after this story. Gary Johnson still mulling Senate race after formal nomination. Albuquerque, New Mexico. A race for New Mexico Senate seat heated up on Saturday as the Libertarian Party of New Mexico nominated a familiar face and recent presidential candidate as its candidate. Former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson was formally nominated by the Libertarian Party after the New Mexico Public Land Commissioner Aubrey Dunn dropped out of the race this week. Johnson, who said in a statement that the campaign was still in consideration, would run against incumbent Democrat Martin Heinrich and Republican Mike Rich. He is expected to announce his decision in the coming days. Now, Gary Johnson, this is quite an interesting thing. Gary Johnson, two-time Libertarian Party candidate, former Republican governor of New Mexico, and former Republican candidate in 2012, is going to be, he's still kind of like on the fence, like, I don't know, maybe not, but he's been officially nominated by the party, so I'm pretty sure Johnson wouldn't just throw this out of the wind. Now, personally, I'd like to see Johnson run again. It to me, felt like sad when Johnson announced that he wasn't going to run in 2020. Not because I personally wanted to vote for him. I probably would have. I had a chance of voting for him in 2016 if I had the chance to vote. but I would have more likely just voted for Jill Stein. I have reasons for why Johnson was a chance of voting, as in, like, he was the more, technically out of most of the Libertarian Party candidates, he was the furthest to left, technically. But even then, it's like barely counts. It's mostly due to his social policy, but, you know, I say you know a lot, but, you know. Okay. And actually, if you look at some of the polls that have been released about this, there's one of the polls that actually shows Johnson beating the incumbent. So technically, this could actually be the Senate seat that flips gold. And we can't, and everybody who likes third parties as much as I do, you can't miss this opportunity. This is the literal opportunity that has been thrown to you on a silver platter. Now, would I endorse Johnson is a question you probably might want to know. The answer is simple. Probably not. Because Mark Heinrich is, you know, he has also signed on to Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill, but I have seen that it is not exactly the telling piece of evidence that a person is truly for Medicare for All, as Heinrich is not exactly that reliable on a lot of fields. So on endorsements, I might sit this one out. I mean, it's not like Gary Johnson is sitting down watching on his TV like, dang it, with his endorsement we would have won this one. I'd be completely on board if Johnson was the candidate. If Johnson was the senator, I'd like him. He probably wouldn't make it on my top 10 senators list. Well, top 11. Fun fact about that, actually. When I was writing the script, when I was writing, like, my favorite senators, I didn't notice that I accidentally put 2 number 5s, so I accidentally had 12 senators, so I literally just deleted one and then moved it to, like, an honorable mentions part. Progress on that video, it's gonna be a bit of a wild one, because I gotta do a lot of research, and some of these guys are not as, you know, what I thought they were, but anyways. So yeah, Johnson, that would be an interesting run to see Gary Johnson run as a senator. Okay, now then moving on to the next quote-unquote story. The recent primaries. There have been 2 recent primaries. The primary in Tennessee that was held on August 2nd. I had a lot of hope for one of the candidates, but in the August 2nd primary, the candidate that I was hoping would win in the Tennessee primary would be John Wolfe Jr., which unfortunately he did not. Now, I mean, a statement from his campaign manager stated that he was kind of like 100% like he pretty much knew that he wasn't going to win, but he would fought anyways. My only kind of, and I was kind of like expecting, like, okay, there's probably a chance that he's might not gonna win in this, especially considering he didn't have the support of a Justice Democrats or a brand new Congress. But the biggest kind of prediction that I had the prediction in my head, like, if he doesn't win, he was at least gonna get second place due to the fact that he is well known in Tennessee, being a congressional candidate and a presidential candidate. But actually, no, surprisingly not. He got 3rd place, and I'm like, what? And then it was something that I didn't mention to him during the interviews, but I did look up Gary Davis to see, like, was there a campaign website? Was there a Facebook? Was there a Twitter or something like that? What I did find is an old website from an old senatorial run in, like, 2014. So maybe it's just because people were used to Gary Davis's name being on the ballot. And of course, Brennan was, you know, the big shot governor. But on the bright side, in Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, Mark Whitmire is moving on to the general because of the fact that he's, an independent. So he didn't have to worry about a party's stupid primary. I'm not saying primaries are stupid. Sorry, Teddy Roosevelt. I know you worked so hard to get primaries a thing, but sometimes they're not that good in certain aspects. But the bigger thing that happened in the August 7th primaries were the ones that were a whole lot more interesting to people, because those primaries had a lot of people running, surprisingly. And me personally, I even had a lot of them had my support. Here are the people I supported who were going into the, primary. Abdul El Sayed, who's running to be the governor of Michigan. In Kansas, we had Brent Welder and James Thompson. In Washington, we had Pramila Jayapal and Sarah Smith. I believe that that's all the people that I supported. I'm scrolling through a lot of the results. I think there's a high chance I probably missed one. And if I missed one, I'll probably give a big, I forgot this person. But first off, we're gonna start off with Washington, which Washington is really weird. Washington's primaries are they kind of do a jungle primary in the same vein as, California. And here's currently the results. In District 7, Pramila Jayapal won her race with 0% of the vote. Wait. Yeah, it appears that literally nobody's votes have been counted in the District 7. And, to add insult to injury, Sarah Smith, her campaign has made it explicitly clear on Twitter that her results have yet to be fully counted, as many of the ballots have still yet to be, counted. She's coming in a not so distant third, so she gets to stay on my website a bit longer because her state has literally yet to reveal who wins. Now, for Brent Welder, unfortunately, he didn't win the primary. Sharice Davids, a Native American activist, won the primary instead. Many people have kind of been mad because there's been a whole bit of drama with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsing Sharice Davids. And personally, I'm on the side of she didn't have to do that. I can kind of see why she did it, because people have been giving a lot of criticism to her because they're you're making the Democratic Party more divided because you're Super Sanders. And personally, I'm not going to support Sharice Davids because she's not for Medicare for All, really. Medicare for All is my big issue, and if you're not going to support it, there's a high chance I'm probably not going to support your candidacy. Sorry. And in the 4th Congressional District, we have some good news. James Thompson won his primary there. He's going to be facing off against Representative Ron Estes, who ran against Ron Estes. No, I was actually confused about this too. I was checking wait a second, is Ron Estes cheating? But, apparently he's not. There's just two people in, there's just two people running that just happen to be named Ron Estes. Holy freak. I just looked at, because I moved on to Missouri at this point, and one of the Green Party candidates named Jerome Bauer got 666 votes. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a thing that people are going to attack. I know there are people that are going to attack that, but at Missouri, I didn't support anybody in Missouri, but I just wanted to bring up there was a certain candidate who ran for the Libertarian nomination in 2016 by the name of Austin Peterson, who lost. He lost epically. You know, if you ran for the Libertarian nomination, you probably would have won. And for Michigan, there's not much to really say. Justin Amash wins, but sadly, we do have some sad news. Abdul El Saeed, who I supported kind of late to the game because I wanted to endorse a lot more congressional races rather than gubernatorial ones, because let's be honest, I'm not gonna be really affected by the governor of Michigan. But Abdul El Saeed lost his race, and that kind of, stinks. Just as Democrat loss is still a loss, and it's just bad. But there's one more thing. I'm pretty sure I skipped her race, but another Justice Democrat did win. Rashida Tlaib. She is a Justice Democrat, Democratic Socialist for America, universal healthcare kind of candidate who won, and there's a high chance she's gonna win because it's a a Democratic leaning district. So yeah, currently we're gonna be probably having 2 Democratic Socialists of America members in the United States Congress, so that's good news. But none of these races made anybody's heads twitch. The only one that made people's heads feel bigger was Ohio's 12th district race. This is a race that has everybody mad. Let me explain why. There are 3 candidates for this race. Troy Balderson, a Republican, Danny O'Connor, a Democrat, and Joe Manchin, not Joe Manchin, Joe Manchin, a Green Party member. Right away, if you know anything about history, you know what the problem is. You know what people are going to be bitching and moaning about. Troy Balderson got 101,574 votes. Danny O'Connor got 99,820 votes, and Joe Manchin got 1,127 votes. Now, many people have been pointing to Joe Manchin and saying he's a spoiler. Now, I think you know my opinion on the spoiler myth. Mainly the fact that I call it a spoiler myth and not the spoiler effect probably details what my views on the spoiler myth is, because that's what it is, a myth. Evidence does not really pile up in favor of the spoiler myth. Pretty much every single election that the spoiler myth happens to take effect in can be solved and constructed down with major arguments to the contrary. Personally, I cite one election as the biggest factor to disprove the spoiler myth. The 1948 election, where 2 factions of the Democratic Party, one that was further to the left and one that was further to the right, literally left the party and took 2% and took at least 2.4% of the vote with them, and Harry Truman still won. Like, personally, the only way the spoiler myth could actually have any merit is if it is a faction of the party that leaves to form a new party. That's not the case for the Green Party. They were never affiliated with the Democratic Party at all. And, people have been, criticizing and saying the Green Party is like, maybe, people who vote for Joe Manchin today are too young to remember what happened with Ralph Nader. Or, Green Party members, do you understand that you need to stop using your symbolic votes when you're trying to run white supremacists out of the country? Or, and this is my personal favorite, there's one person who literally said that everybody who voted for Joe Manchin should be put on an iceberg and sent out to sea. Now, I'm not the best person at math, but let me explain why Joe Manchin mathematically could not have beaten Troy Balderson or made the spoiler effect happen. Everybody get out your calculators. Remember, Manchin got 1,127 votes. Okay? So, I did the math, and even then, Troy Balderson beats them by over 100 votes. So, again, you got nothing here. People have even pointed out that there are like 30,000 registered members in this district that didn't even bother voting. That's your problem, not the Green Party candidate. Your problem is that nobody wanted to vote for you. So much so that they're going to be holding a recall election where the Green Party member is taken off the ballot. And you know what's going to happen? I'm going to predict this right now. Balderson is going to win because literally everybody who was here, all you're doing is subtracting the 1,127 members who voted for Joe Manchin. You're just taking them out of the equation. And back to the whole iceberg thing. You want to know what's the biggest thing? It's one of the reasons why I find the Democrats so freaking stupid. Democratic establishment sympathizers and Democratic establishment members themselves are all just completely freaking brain dead. If you want the Green Party members to vote for you, you don't get to point your fingers at them and call them stupid and then expect them to come back and vote for you. That's not how it works. Literally the only way I can sum up the Democratic Party's relationship with progressives is literally an abusive relationship. They go up to the progressives and are like, you're stupid, you're fucking stupid. You vote for the Green Party candidate because they want Medicare for all. You vote for them because they actually want to legalize marijuana. You vote for them because they actually stand up for progressive values. You vote for them because they're actually have backbones. And it's not just 3 members of their party that support a progressive policy. It's actually like all of the members of their party. Are you fucking brain dead? You're fucking stupid. By the way, go vote for 1st of November. You don't get to do that. That's not how it works. And you know what? People are gonna look at me and a lot of them. There's actually one person who blames on Russian hacking. It's like, fucker, what? Shut up. You're not being smart. You think you're being so quirky and smart, but like, we gotta fight against the Republican establishment. We gotta vote blue. It's like, if you keep telling, I can't even freaking argue at this point because the Democrats are just gonna learn, and you know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna predict another 2020 election thing. A couple of progressives are gonna run. The Democrats are gonna be like, we gotta get rid of them, kick them off, and then either all of the progressives who vote for the Democratic Party will realize then and there that the party has lied to them, and they are not going to get their results through the party, and are going to leave and then vote for the Green Party again, and the Green Party candidate is going to make a big freaking upset. Or the Democrats are just going to keep going on this stupid failure cycle and just ride it out until everybody dies. Because I'm telling you up front, the Democratic Party is not the way to get progressive values done. There are progressive Democrats that I like, and that's fine. They can stay with the party if they want. But I will never, in my life, call myself a Democratic Party member again. Even if I run with the Democratic Party, as soon as I get elected, I am leaving that party. I will be like, thank you, bitches, bye. It just freaking aggravates me. And the best part is, the Green Party, they've been through this so many freaking times that they're just gonna bounce back off and just be fine. They did this with Ralph Nader. They did this with Jill Stein. And they're going to just keep going, and eventually somebody's gonna break, and a Green Party member is gonna get elected to Congress. And it couldn't happen. There's like 3 members of the Green Party that made it to the general election in California. And even though I kind of personally dream that I would be the first Green Party member in Congress, I'm glad that Kenneth Mejia gets to be that one. Now, on to the political party of the day. It's going to be the Natural Law Party. You may have heard this mentioned a couple of times in some of my past videos, such as the Reform Party video, and I think that's actually the only video I mentioned it in. I honestly thought I expected it to be mentioned in a couple other videos, but then again, I don't really have that many videos on my channel at this point. But let's get into them. The Natural Law Party is a U.S. political party affiliated with the International National Law Party. Shouldn't they call it the International Law Party? It was founded in 1992, and we'll get to that. We'll get to the "and" in a second here. Its political stance really kind of, rather than it believed that it believed that all U.S. problems could be solved with transcendental meditation. It said how yoga could reduce unemployment, raise gross national product, improve health, and reduce crime. And John Hagelin was the candidate for the party in all 3 presidential elections they participated in: 1992, 1996, and 2000. It made some attempts to merge with the Reform Party. As I mentioned, it's the video about the Reform Party. Go anywhere. As, Buchanan had to screw everything up, as they do. The party itself takes a civil libertarian stance on a lot of issues. It was pro-gay marriage. It doesn't really take a stance on marijuana laws and healthcare. They're kind of free market, I guess. It doesn't really say. They had some brief mergers with some smaller local officials like Republicans and even some members of the New Alliance Party, which was the party that Lenora Fulani ran with during her leading thing. It was, by 2004, the party was kind of super irrelevant. So rather than just running any candidate on its own, they endorsed Dennis Kucinich for president. And then Walt Brown, the Socialist Party candidate, in general. By this time, it kind of just shrunk to the point where they just decided, you know what, screw it, we're not going to be a national party anymore. They kind of took a peace and freedom party route, which will get its own video because it does have a longer history than this. And they decided to endorse a lot of smaller people in Michigan because it has been on the ballot in Michigan. It stayed on the ballot in Michigan. They even endorsed Brian Moore from the Socialist Party in 2008. They endorsed Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson in 2012. Here's a tip for any of my people who do anything relating to 2012. If 2012 happens to come up in my, episodes or anything, there's a high chance Rocky Anderson will be in it. And they endorsed Mimi Solt Eastic from the Socialist Party USA in 2016. It's been running gubernatorial candidates, but that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all we got for the Natural Law Party. And to be perfectly honest, who cares? The Natural Law Party? I don't think so. I don't even think they care. They're probably glad I'm only giving them a shout out here. Okay, so now we're going to be delving into the North Carolina 4th Congressional District race. Again, this is going to be the first election I get to participate in, so who are my candidates? Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. Well, rather than just going over the general election candidates, I'm actually going to be going over all of the candidates, including the ones in the primary. First, we're going to start off with the Libertarian Party, as it's going to be, the Libertarian Party is going to be on the ballot, which is good for third parties. The first candidate for the Libertarian Party, we have Sari Perry Whitlock. They're an individual who ran for a Republican office, and like a Republican local office. I believe so. I checked. Sari Perry Whitlock seems to have run that. It's on our campaigns. And there's not much to really say. The website is pretty much just 3 things. It seems to be your average libertarian. I don't even know this person's gender. Then the next libertarian on the ballot is Barbara Howe, who has run for many offices in North Carolina as a libertarian, including including North Carolina governor and District 5 Congressional Race in like one point or another. She's, like pretty much with every libertarian, it's pretty much this. We agree on social issues, war, stuff like that. I think she mentioned in an email to me, because I emailed her asking her some of my comments and concerns, where I basically put my 5 tenets for the best, presidency, and like my personal political issues, the 5 that I hold dearest. And she's like, I agree with all but number 1, and number 1 was single payer healthcare, but, we're not going to be getting anywhere with that. So, yeah. That's pretty much it for them. For the Republicans, we have Lee Bryan, who, from when I checked her website, it was pretty much a Donald Trump troll alt-right side, words like deplorables for Lee Bryan. There wasn't really much on the website that was truly politically sensitive, in my opinion. Then again, I only checked on the website like a long time ago, and the website's been shut down since. But for the one that actually made it to the general, we have... Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, Barbara Howe was the one who ended up winning the primary election. Nobel Prize. The one with actual, like, big political experience. It's like if Sean Hugh... You know, he's a guy who's run for Senate in North Carolina as a Libertarian candidate for a long time. Steve Von Lohr is the person who won their fucking nomination. Steve Von Lohr is your typical Republican, conservative-minded, you know, not much surprise there. Now, for the Democratic primary, the one I actually paid attention to, we had Michelle Laws and Richard Watkins go up against David Price, the current congressman. Michelle Laws, I didn't support her candidacy, but I did check up on her website because it's still up. She has a lot of issues I agree with. I just happen to endorse Richard Watkins III more, as Richard Watkins III was a brand new Congress candidate. You know, he's for Medicare for all, that kind of jazz. She was for that too. It just so happened that Watkins had the BNC label next to him. If he had the Justice Democrats label, it would have made me like his campaign a whole lot more. Because back then, Kyle Kalinske was still a part of Justice Democrats, but that is a whole for another day. And David Price, he's, well, interesting. He ended up winning the nomination. So now let's get into the in-depth look at the three major candidates. I already did a bit of in-depth at Barbara Howe. All this info, except for Steve Von Lohr, is from VoteSmart. Steve Von Lohr, his is directly from the website because he was reluctant to answer the VoteSmart answers. So let's start with Barbara Howe. She has, you know, the average libertarian kind of stuff, you know. Is she pro-life or pro-choice? She's pro-choice. She's for cutting budget and everything. She says that we need to make the federal government smaller and not limit campaign finance reform. Single-payer healthcare is a bad idea. She's for gun rights. But the biggest one that I think we should talk about is her administrative priorities. You know, these are the things that she's like, I'm gonna fight for these, the biggest, when I get into Congress. She said that she will focus on ending our foreign military adventures, ending the war on drugs, and reforming our immigration policy. All of these are consistent with the overall libertarian position on reducing the size and scope of the federal government. Washington has too much involvement in all our lives. Now, the first sentence I agree with. You know, if she was running on that and didn't also have all the baggage of, like, the libertarian economic policies, she'd 100% have my vote. But, you know, the libertarian economic policies kind of make things a bit against her favor. But, you know, Gary Johnson also had a couple of that, and I kind of supported him more as a backup in case Jill Stein wasn't on the ballot. But let's move on to Steve Von Lohr. He's the big challenger. He's, the Hispanic American running for Congress. Now, he's actually done this. He made like small, short platform overviews that are short and to the point. So let's read them all, because, he made it short and sweet and to the point. So let's do that. Lower taxes, lift regulations on small businesses, reduce wasteful government spending, oppose TPP and NAFTA. No. Yes. Those ones, those are what I believe in for his economy platform. Abortion, protect life in all circumstances, defund Planned Parenthood, support alternatives to abortion. No, yes. That depends on what your alternatives to abortion is, because any logical person with a brain understands that if you want less abortions, you gotta, supply people with contraceptives and, teach better sex education at school, but, he's probably not for that. Let's try his anti-corruption. Institute term limits for Congress and pass campaign finance reform. Okay, he's kind of got me there. Term limits? Yeah, sure. And I know exactly why he says term limits, because David Price has been in office since 1997. Here's a little special bonus. I was born in the year 2000, so... Campaign finance reform. I'm going to have to look deeply at what he means by campaign finance reform, because it's a term I like hearing, but it might not mean the same to me as it does to him. Okay, First Amendment. Fight censorship of hate speech, support religious liberty, and secure freedom of the press. Yeah, sure. Except for the second one, because, religious liberty can also mean, the government does not have the right to say that a Christian can smash an atheist's head on a rock. Okay, so... And for veterans, reform the VA's bureaucracy, support programs to counter homelessness, unemployment, and provide treatment for mental health. Yeah, that kind of sounds kind of okay too. But then again, he could probably just mean, we just abolish the government, like the government agency. Okay, campaign finance reform. Here's what he has to say on that. When it comes to money and politics, our nation desperately needs transparency. Oh boy, I literally just read it and literally just started disagreeing with it. He says he wants to raise the amount of money that a corporation can spend on a campaign, but just make it known who's donating. That's something that Gary Johnson has also proposed, but, Gary Johnson at least kind of, sort of went with the whole, we still gotta limit the amount they can donate. But, okay, let's find out what he means by religious liberty. The free exercise of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, and fundamental human rights are necessary in maintaining healthy democracy. That is why the Founding Fathers enshrined all of us. Unfortunately, these freedoms are under attack. Religious business owners are being persecuted for their beliefs that they are under threat. Yes, that is not what I want. He's literally like, the government is trying to destroy the government, so we gotta stop. We gotta stop these big government atheists from persecuting the good Christian owners who, try to do things. The VA seems to be just your average Republican VA kind of stuff, but, I'm not really going to get anywhere with that. Now let's move on to David Price. He, surprisingly, due to the fact that he's an incumbent, has, written a lengthy, detailed list of all of his platforms. Now, let's get out of the way. He's a Democrat, so of course, abortions obviously decided for him, despite the fact that Dan Lipinski is super anti-abortion. The tax things is kind of, cut military spending, He's done some fighting for the We the People Act, which is an act that he tried to pass in Congress. Look it up. The way the people act, it kind of is insulting. He literally has no other backers. Literally nobody wants to sign on. That's one thing that I do kind of hate about David Price. He, like, GovTrack has a ranking. Left to right means how further to the left you are or further to the right you are. And up and down means leadership skills. David Price is ranked near the bottom and to the center. So, yeah. He's kind of a centrist pussy. Let's read what his administrative priorities are. First, we must ensure that the benefits of economic growth are broadly shared. This means investing in the education and worker training, mitigating the negative effects of globalization, making the tax code fair, ensuring that all American workers earn a living wage, and investment in affordable housing and transportation, which are essential foundations for economic opportunity. You know, you kind of winning me there. He kind of has me there. Granted, a lot of these positions he was not really for until the 2016 election, but... Second, we must pass comprehensive democracy reform legislation such as the We the People Act to end partisan gerrymandering, reduce the influence of money in politics, expand voter registration, and reform ethics laws. This legislation would help restore integrity, transparency, and accountability to all in our politics. Okay, so... You see, David Price has me there. Where he doesn't have me is a lot of some of the decisions he's made in the past that he can't hide from. There are decisions that he's made that I can't overlook. Like recently, there was the military spending budget, which was to give $717 billion to the military. David Price voted for that bill. He wanted to give $717 billion to the military. He wanted to do that. And here's one of the biggest damning pieces of evidence that may be kind of the contrary of David Price. He voted for the Patriot Act. And now you might say, well, dude, didn't any government officials that you like vote against the Patriot Act? Nope. Bernie Sanders, Dennis Kucinich, Ron Paul, they all voted against it. And yet, David Price voted for it. David Price has also had some iffiness and voted against the war in Iraq, which I do have to give him credit for. But, you know, there are a lot of things that I just can't trust him on. And the Medicare for All thing is not like he's been screaming, I want Medicare for All. You want to know another thing? Medicare for All caucus that was just announced like not that long ago. He's not a member. He's a member of a freaking after-school caucus. Dude, you want to show your for Medicare for All? Join that caucus. It's right there. Right there. Pramila's just waving at you, being like, hello, David, how you doing today? Pelosi's got her claws in you. You're afraid to just go off and do something else. So, I'm left with a choice. Election day. There are really, logically, only like 2 candidates currently running that could get my vote, and a couple people who could get me as a write-in vote, because I'm going to rank some of my decisions with reasons why and why not that I would vote for them. First, David Price. He has been making some progressive strides. That's a good thing. And has done some progressive things in the past. Downside is that he's voted for a lot of unprogressive things as well. And things that he can't hide from. 2, Barbara Howe. She's fighting for a lot of progressive ideals as well. Despite the fact that she doesn't know that. for the libertarian progressive ideals that overlap. Getting out of the wars, But, and now we're getting into some of the other ones, the ones that are kind of, you might think that I'm a bit loony for suggesting, but these are some of the people that I'm suggesting as write-in votes. First, we have Cecil Bothwell. He was a city council member who, was a staunch progressive, one of the few atheists to be elected into any government position, at least openly. He has a huge progressive offspring, even endorsing Sanders in the primary and Stein in the general. So I could possibly write him in. Downside, he doesn't even live in my district, so the write-in vote kind of means nothing. 2, I could write in Richard Watkins, due to the fact that he was a candidate in the race and truly stands for progressive ideals. Of course, he's obviously not running, but, could be anything. Or I could write in Brad Miller, who is another progressive who was part of North Carolina, he was one of the few current or former congressmen, because he was a former congressman at the time, who actually endorsed the Sanders campaign. So yeah, I could write him in, or I could just write in the Green Party, because I really want the Green Party to run a candidate in this race, because I want someone to vote for that I legitimately care about. The best part is I could pretty much vote for any of these people that I listed, and it wouldn't matter. David Price has been in this seat since 1997. The turnout for these elections are so low, especially considering North Carolina's got this big gerrymandering thing. There was I should have covered this story, but there were a lot of people who were arrested for trying to vote. So yeah, there's that. So, my throat hurts and we've reached 2 minutes over an hour, so I guess I'll wrap it up here. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and remember to click that bell to be notified when a future video might comes out. And if you're interested in more political content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Quora, or even check out my articles on Real Progressives. Leave a question below, and maybe I could answer your questions in a future video. And this is going to be a brief, small thing, but if you actually want to appear on the podcast yourself, go to my website and do my contact thing, or you can just shout it in the comments below. I'd love to have other people on my podcast. It'd be kind of interesting to see a two-host dynamic. And you could also leave possibilities for topics down below. Thank you for watching, and bye.